In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies and knights to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I am your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host from deep in the heart of Texas, Mr. Dustin Melbardis. How you doing, sir?
Morning, Russell. It's an awesome time of the year. We get to chat about movies, and we're in the middle of the NBA Finals. Can't wait. When this releases, we will know. But right now, audience, you know that we're a lot of basketball heads, so we're excited on multiple fronts.
I say go Pacers. So
we are all saying go Pacers right now.
Now, very excited. International show here. Coming to you from Dortmund, Germany. Archaeologist and now video editor, Mr. Ros Evans. How you doing, sir?
I'm very well. I'm delighted. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to be on with you guys and to talk about this wonderful movie coming up.
Yeah, welcome, Ross.
And before we do that, we want to ask you about the Historical Movies podcast. Tell us about this.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain it is it's basically the same as this podcast, but we look at old historical movies. I do it with my brother Bryce, who's he's a professor of modern history in Liverpool in England. And so he brings the kind of hard historical stuff when we look through old historical movies. And I have a master's degree in archaeology, have a background in that. But for the last 15 years or so, I've been making and editing videos. I'm a video and film editor, and I've worked on lots of different projects, films, television, a lot less boring, a lot more boring stuff as well as that. So I bring kind of the film side of it as well. So we have a good mix, and we're both people who love retro movies, old movies. So we'll take movies, Braveheart or Saving Private Ryan, and we'll sit down and we'll go through some of the history, the background, so we can all appreciate the movies even more, see what they got right, see what they made up, and just talk about the movies. So it's very, very similar to this.
Oh, that sounds awesome. So all historical background. You guys must do a lot of homework then for your show then.
Yeah, that's the other thing I love, because I just find history infinitely fascinating. And it gives me a great reason to dig into a little bit each period of history that we cover, each film. And I'm also a massive film nerd. The first thing I do when I finish watching a movie is go straight to IMDb and read through the entire trivia section. So it's great to be able to combine those two hobbies. So they kind of merge, they kind of fit together very well.
All right. Well, today this is on theme for us, but I'm going to ask you, what is your favorite Italian food or dish?
Yes, there's an awful lot of things to choose from: pizza, pasta. But I actually thought about this, and I think my favorite is tiramisu. I love tiramisu, and this movie that we're covering reminds me of tiramisu. Tiramisu is sweet, it's enjoyable, it's fun. It means pick me up in Italian, tiramisu. So I'm going with that for my favorite Italian dish.
Nice. How about you, Dustin? Do you have a favorite Italian meal or dish?
I do, in kind of a roundabout way. I want to mention something about what Ross said. Is I like tiramisu as well, but whenever you have like a pastry or dessert that has that dusting of something, whether that's like a dusting of cocoa or something, you're so excited to eat it that then sometimes you inhale that dust right off the top. That's the only thing that tiramisu doesn't have going for it, is that, oh no, if you're too excited for it. For me, I find most pasta to be heavy. I don't order a lot of pasta frequently, and I don't go out of my way to Italian restaurants. However, growing up, my mom and she taught me how to make this. We would do a very light clam sauce with shells. I like lightness with pasta. I don't like to eat a lot of it. I don't like spaghetti. I don't like angel hair. I think it's just so much. And so I will do something like a light clam sauce or a white sauce. I gotta say that here in the States with the Olive Garden, the Italian wedding soup, or the soups that have that a little bit of spicy sausage to it, I really, really enjoy as well. But whatever it is that we like, I just have to have a third of a portion because that pasta is so heavy.
It is heavy, and it is a lot. You know what else is a lot? Manicotti. I love it. That's my dish. If you could just make a tube the size of a brick and then stuff it full of like cheese and meat, then yeah, it's like a Qdoba burrito for Italian. You know, there you go. So you got your 4,000 calories in one meal right there. So.
The marketing's right there.
When you brought up the point there, Dustin, that I love tiramisu, but I knew that you would say the thing about the powder, the powder, because I've been in restaurants and embarrassed myself by breathing in the chocolate powder. And then being, coughing and yeah.
Now I want to know what the last movie that you saw is, Ross.
The last movie I saw was 13 Days, which I don't know if you remember that one. That's, I think, from about the year 2000. It's a Kevin Costner vehicle. Very enjoyable. It's about the Cuban Missile Crisis and how Kevin Costner, who plays a guy, I believe he's called Kenny O'Donoghue, I think, and he's like the press secretary to the Kennedy administration, how basically through giving the Kennedy brothers a pep talk and putting in a few key phone calls with key people, how Kevin Costner saved the world from nuclear annihilation. But it's really good fun. I really enjoy it. And I love those movies where you've got a load of people, crammed with their sleeves rolled up, massive sweat patches, drinking coffee at 4:00 in the morning. You've got the tension, the political tension. It's a really fun movie. Historically, utter nonsense because the guy he's playing, the guy that the character that Kurt Russell is playing, if you listen to people that were there, like Robert McNamara, the defense secretary, or the version of that you guys have in America, he didn't do any of that stuff. But it's a great historical flick. It's a great engaging sort of political thriller.
All right, Dustin, how about you? What's the last movie you saw?
April was a big month for me to watch a movie. I probably watch 2 movies every week, which is like triple or quadruple the clip I normally get to different movies. And I filled most of April with horror movies, but there was one day I had so much extra time. You're not going to believe this, Russell. I chose to watch a 3-hour movie.
That's off brand for you.
Way off brand. But it was something that I had never seen, and I knew that would come up in conversation from time to time. I watched The Deer Hunter for the first time.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Great movie.
And it while the runtime isn't in my bag, I will say that the feel of the movie, and I know that it's not the brightest thing to bring up in conversation, but when it comes to angst, suffering, turmoil, just how do you handle the stuff that comes across your way? Those are the realest movies to me. And Russell, I think you must love that movie. Isn't it like in like the steel country up in the Northeast? Like that's where they come home to. That all seemed so real as well. It was such like it had always been described as a tour de force, but I had never known. What you hear about is, the scenes with Russian roulette. That's what you think about, but it's so much more than just a vehicle for that experience. So, incredible watch.
I suspect we will cover this one at some point. And you're right, it comes up all the time. It's filmed here in this region. Obviously, there's an international component to the movie as well. Like you said, there's a lot going on. It's a very long movie. Well, I'm still stunned that you knowingly took this on.
Just I never do. Yeah, and I almost didn't, but I made myself dinner. I gave myself an intermission because it's 2 movies in one.
I watch everything in pieces. That's how everything goes.
Right. You have to with your family. Yeah, but it was really great. Maybe I should try to expand beyond 90 minutes more.
To come back on that, sorry, I do think that if you can get a movie in 90 minutes, I think we're kind of losing that now. I think maybe in the 90s it was more popular to get a 90-minute movie. I think that is the perfect length for a movie, between 90 minutes and 2 hours. Say everything that you want to say and leave the audience wanting a little bit more. Like a fine Italian meal that you should always have a desire to see a little bit more at the end.
Oh, and that's a great tease for what we're covering tonight, too.
Well, the last movie that I got to see, I watched. So the Fantastic Four is going to be coming out this summer. So we are going through the Fantastic Four movies, Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. These are the Jessica Alba, Chris Evans crew, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's a good time. I feel like the legacy on this has changed as superhero movies started coming out left and right and connecting and stuff like that. So this is from a different era, but it's light, it's funny, it's more visually like the comic books. I actually don't mind this movie, and I will defend both of them. The remake that comes after in 2015, I have fewer nice things to say about, but we're going to take that on next, probably.
Did it rank highly when we did that big ranking of our superhero movies? Did it even sniff anybody's top 20?
That's what I mean. Like, I feel like it's swept under the carpet at this point.
I think it is. I think it. I remember the trailer and the reveal of Doctor Doom enthralled me. I had to go see it, and I wasn't so critical of movies back then, and especially wasn't so critical of superhero movies back then. But no, I remember the hype, and it was seeming it was fun. It's the second one, the Silver Surfer one, where the threat is from space, right?
Yeah.
That's where this whole superhero world sometimes starts to lose me. When you lose the confines of Earth and then you go into space, and now we're so comfortable going into different dimensions. Keep my conflicts local. Keep my conflict here. That's what I need.
All right. As a Batman fan, I can get on board with that.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the gritty superhero. I like. Whereas people say Batman's superpower is that he's rich.
Yeah.
Which is actually, it's more fun, more realistic. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of a lot of fun, what movie are we covering today, Dustin?
From 1969, The Italian Job.
That's right. Not the Mark Wahlberg version. This is the Michael Caine, Noel Crawford, Benny Hill version from 1969. It's budgeted for $3 million, grosses $9 million. It's an international movie, so I don't have it exactly placed on the box office that far back. But what I do know is Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was the #1 movie from 1969. IMDb gives a 7.2 to The Italian Job. Critics of Rotten Tomatoes like it a good bit at 82%, and the audience score is just right about there at 85%. It is a Golden Globe nominee for Best English Language Foreign Film, which this movie doesn't come away with a lot of awards. I think the remake is something that a lot of people became enamored with, and so this probably put people back on their radars here in America, but I believe this movie was a bigger deal overseas. This movie didn't necessarily storm the box office domestically here in America, but this one almost, I guess, is like British appreciation. Like this there's a sense of fun. This is a 60s movie. You're at the close of a very fun time of movie. So this is number 36 on the BFI, British Film Institute's 20th Century Movies. So championed and appreciated far more in Britain. I'm going to ask you, Ross, have you seen this movie before?
Yeah, this is the one movie that I've seen more than any other movie in my life, and I absolutely love it. I'm really interested to see what you guys think of it, because, as you said, it bombed in America. Basically, it's massively popular. It's a cult classic. It's like a woven into the fabric in England, particularly. I think it did quite well in France as well. But in America, I think basically thanks, as far as I can understand, to catastrophically bad marketing from Paramount, did really badly in America, basically because the main poster for this movie in America is like a mafioso guy who may or may not be Michael Caine, holding a Tommy gun and a cup of tea, and sitting in front of him is a topless woman with a plan map of the siege or the heist drawn out on her back, which doesn't make any sense. That's not what this movie is about. It's not like busting down doors and shooting people left, right, and center. Not at all. You know, it's a sort of kind of comedy, understated British kind of movie. So I completely, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you guys made of it.
What you mentioned right there bothered Michael Caine. He had come to America and saw the movie poster, and he had a what kind of reaction himself. He got angry. He was upset. But I think more people who are enthusiasts. I mean, car movies, I think, whether it be Fast and Furious or other movies, these are kind of classic movies. And so there are, like you said, it's a cult following. So if you are a car guy, this is one you must add to your collection to see. So, Dustin, how about you? Had you seen the 1969 Italian Job?
No, I had not seen it. This was my first viewing coming in. Yes, I went to theaters to see the 2003 version, and I had learned from my dad, hey, you got to check out the original. And most of the time when Dad gave me a recommendation, it was Aces. It was like, oh, this was a part of movie culture. I just never got around to this. And so this is brought up. Russell, you mentioned the thing about cars, but there is an entire feel and atmosphere to this movie that while I was watching the movie, I was within it. But it was new to me, and I did not know to expect that I'd be sort of being whisked away to the setting of Turin or driving through the Alps that when this is happening, I kind of let myself fly with it. It's like, stay here. Now, the thing I don't have coming in is whatever the British sensibility is, whatever the feel about 60s English cinema, perhaps. I don't have any of that. And so for Ross, who wants to hear how we feel about it, I'm actually more interested in, like, I almost need it to be explained so that I can get a feel. I'm one of those people that, like, back in school, if you told me what the author meant by the passage, that's what I take with me. And I like learning, here's what we meant, here's what this meant. When we've done British movies in the past, Russsell, I've always leaned on you with your research, like, explain to me what this meant. And I generally like it. But I am looking forward to this conversation where we can learn as to what did we mean. But it was enjoyable. There's definitely scenes that will stick with you for a long time. It's a reason why it's referenced back. Finally, Russsell, you have always been the champion of when a movie matters to the movie landscape, and Ross fits in with what you guys do with, like, historically why this movie is important. I am the opposite. I generally take it at face value and say, here's how I watched it, and my star rating at the moment is up in the air between what I saw at face value and what I can learn in the next hour 20 with you guys. So we're gonna see.
Keep listening, listeners.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a cliffhanger.
True.
In more ways than one. I had not seen this movie. I had seen the 2003 version. I enjoyed the 2003 version quite a bit. I definitely watched it multiple times as it was circulated in the dorm halls. It was one of the college movies that was there. I, like Dustin, had always had this on the mind I got to go back and see it. If the new one's this good, how good is the original? And I was expecting a grittier movie, to be honest with you. I was expecting more of an action. And as somebody who loves comedy, I liked the levity to this. And I should have known, again, I mentioned before the 60s, we're not so far. We just covered the French Connection. Great car chase scene in that movie too. That movie is gritty. It is in the urban jungle. This movie is fun. And I think this movie, in the way that I go back and watch an old Sean Connery Bond movie, and it is just delightfully fun. There's something about the music, and I mean, Austin Powers kind of parodies this and has fun with this to some degree. But I mean, like you said, it's 60s, it's mod culture, it's free love's depicted in this. Is like, hey, you're out of jail, like, have some ladies and stuff like that. Like, I mean, there's this sense of this is a bygone era, and it's really kind of fun to go visit this. And like I was saying, this one's not as high octane as I was expecting. Now, when the stunts come, they're good, but they're backloaded. And so this movie, I'm not going to lie, the first time I watched this, I was too tired. I was not in the right frame of mind. And I had a hard time getting over the first part of this. And luckily, we took some more time to get to the round of recording this. I had another chance to see it. It goes down much better the second time. I think whenever you have a movie that's kind of humorous and fun, and you start to lean on parts of having a good time, I think rewatch value is certainly there for this movie. So, Ross, you're saying this is a movie that you've seen more than any other movie. I could see wanting to return to this movie. It's a lot of fun. It's not necessarily laugh out loud on roll on the floor funny, but it does. You just get this, I don't know, mischievous grin on your face. There's something. This is the kind of heist movie and crime movie I like a lot. It's not a real dark, gritty one.
You said you expected more grit, and I think what I found upon my first watch was slightly more cheek than grit.
Yeah.
And when a character is annoyed by another character, or when a line is delivered, it's not punchy, meant to make you laugh out loud, but it's meant to show there's a bit of personality, even if you don't have a ton of time with all the personalities, that you get to see that little bit. So that was an unexpected joy of this first watch for me.
All right, well, we are going to spoil this movie. I don't think you want it spoiled. And even if you've seen the new one, I don't think that's a good gauge of making you protected. Go watch this one. You don't want to spoil this movie for yourself, because it is different. So we will be back after these messages.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
All right, we are back, and this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. Dustin, do you want to refresh people's memories who have not seen The Italian Job since 1969?
We open on a motorist's dream, hugging curves throughout the Alps, while on days like these accompanies the scenic view and the joy of driving. Until that drive comes to an abrupt end, at the hands of the Italian mafia, with a car crunched against a dozer and delivered into a ravine. Cut to Charlie Croker, exiting a prison, saying farewell to his other inmates, and an authority named Bridger, being picked up by his girlfriend Lorna, and learning from some stashed film about a job in Italy, $4 million worth of gold bullion being transferred in Turin, and our motorist's plan for the heist. Croker inherits the job and puts together a large team to jam both the surveillance and the traffic, so that the gold can be whisked away by talented drivers. Recon shows us that their obstacles don't include just the police, but the dangerous head of the Italian mafia, Albertini, who warns them against invading on their turf by smashing up even more of their beautiful cars. Undeterred, Croker and his men approach the day of, execute the plan, and then we are treated to a fantastic show as a getaway vehicles race through packed spaces until they reach the countryside, rendezvous into a coach, then escape through the mountains until a bit of reckless hubris leads to their coach swerving and nearly crashing off the mountainside. As their fate teeters on the edge of death, Croker plans out this next move with a great idea, but we are left not knowing if their peril is avoided as this cliffhanger dangles the excitement for another potential adventure.
All right. So, Ross, I'm going to ask you. This one, like you mentioned, is more culturally based in Britain. I do want to hear from you. What is this seemingly divide? Obviously, marketing has a huge part to do with this. What is it about this that's going to make the European audiences continue to stay in love with this movie from the 60s? Why is it continuing to prevail?
I think there's many answers to that, and this holds such a is on such a cult pedestal in the UK. It really is a great cultural phenomenon in many ways in the UK. And I think there's a few reasons for that. First of all, it's from the 60s. It's from a beautiful era of filmmaking. All of my favorite movies are from the 60s, and there's many different reasons why. It's to do with which we'll get into later, perhaps. But I think from a British cultural perspective, it really encapsulates an awful lot of British culture, not only from the 60s, like as a snapshot, but also from today. Even from things like the interior design of Irene Handl, that's the character actor who's playing the wife of Professor Peach. When Michael Caine and Camp Freddy go and visit her, and they've got cats on their laps, and there's like horrible pink wallpaper, and the tea trolley comes in. All of that stuff is so brilliantly British. And then you also get other parts of it. So you've got Mr. Bridger, who is this wonderful character who is obsessed with the Queen, running the whole thing from his prison cell. Another wonderful character. There's even a nod to in some ways, some minorities, like the Big William character is from something in Britain called the Windrush generation. That was when a lot of Jamaican immigrants came to the UK in the 40s and 50s, and they would be like the first generation born after that. So there's a lot of that mix, that melting pot, that kind of swinging 60s kind of feel to it. And another thing that's great about it is that it's really cool. It's such a cool movie in many parts. I love the opening to this movie. I love the Italian coolness. I love Ralph Vallone, who plays the mafia head honcho. I think he's just one of the coolest people I've ever seen in my life. When I was a little kid, the first time I watched this when I was 6, my dad recorded it at VHS because he thought it's got car chases in. Ross will love it. And I put it on, and I was completely hooked. And to the point at which I would sit there, apparently, I can't remember this, but I would sit there in front of it and say the lines before they came up on the screen. Not at the same time, before they came up on screen. And to the point at which my dad thought, okay, we're going to have to get this kid checked for something because this is not normal behavior. But, I come back to it years later. I watch this film maybe once every couple of years. And there's always some new part of it that I've missed. Every time I watch it, there's some new little detail. There's like the little vignettes that you see of the prison. It's filmed in Ireland, actually, a place called Kilmainham.
Now I'm going to ask you a question, Dustin. I know writing and character construction are huge things for you. And this movie is not a character piece. This is more about a heist. This is more about the heist itself. And this movie is thriving on style a lot and the attitude of the movie. We do not spend a great deal of time with each of the members of the team. There's a little bit here and there. They have their moments. I'm going to ask you right away with a hard-hitting question. How's this going down for you? Because, again, you normally prefer those deep characters in your stories.
You do know me. You do know me. You know the things that I like. And it is okay for us to acknowledge when a movie is lacking in a particular staple or a particular pillar of movie making. So we'll just get it off the bat. Aside from Croker and Bridger, who do get some bit of explanation or development, there's not really a single other member of the team that any time is devoted to learning who they are, what they are, how they interact, aside from the small 1 or 2 lines that go back and forth. Can we substitute that with style, which this movie has by the bucket load? I don't think it's a substitute. Instead, it's like choosing to go to a different restaurant. When I choose to go to a different restaurant, I'm not substituting a burrito for a burger. I'm wanting 2 different things. So in this sense, what we get with the style and the atmosphere, it's not substituting the lack of character. It's just that's just what this movie is. That's okay. If you enjoy watching a type of sport, you aren't substituting that same enjoyment. You have to like other things. And this is something where drink in the style. Let it wash over you. That's what you like. It's not subbing out for the lack of character growth. So in that case, once I kind of realized that of the heist movies that have come since then, we are always treated to, when our vignettes show up, we are treated to the little quirks of that character. We're treated to the things that make them fun to see on screen, the way they interact with others. And generally, somewhere along the line, we're treated with some source of conflict within the team. Here, we don't have that. It's fine. We're replaced with introducing the characters is all done at a long conference table, and it's being done where Croker's introducing these people, and it's almost like as an audience member we're sitting there as part of the team meeting all these people, and we're given their names. We're kind of told what they're going to do, but by the next 45 minutes, the heist is happening, and you don't remember. I mean, unless you've watched this 100 times, you don't remember who's who. You just see that it is happening.
Yeah.
Then we go back to something like Ronin, for instance. Or we go back to maybe the Ocean's movies. All of this stuff happened after. Mm-hmm. So maybe we fine-tuned as to what is it that we like. Maybe we like to see how the plan happens. Maybe we like to see how a plan can go wrong. We don't have that. That's okay. What we do get is that's what you got to focus on. I found myself it was easy to enjoy what I was getting. I was not thinking, when's the other shoe going to drop? Instead, it was all about the investment into the success. Wow, they're really doing it. Wow, they're driving down this sidewalk. Wow, they are plowing through this busy plaza and then shooting through the sewers. And at this point, I'm like, these police are toast. Now we're just enjoying the success. And the soundtrack helps with that too, toward the end. But yeah, it's you were right to point out what I generally like. That's okay. What we have in its place or what we have to enjoy is palatable on its own.
On the counterpoint, somebody who's seen this more, Dustin just mentioned the parts are fairly interchangeable. Beyond Croker, I think Margaret Blye stands out as Lorna. She has her spot in the movie, although she kind of disappears in the back half of the movie. I wish she hadn't been written out. She's a lot of fun talk about that. Like, do you connect with these smaller components, or no? This is the Michael Caine show, and it's the mini show where you're driving the minis.
It is in many ways. I mean, it helps. Again, I'm talking to someone who has seen this film 100 times. It helps a lot as well as if you're immersed in that culture. And it's done in two ways. Number one, you've got like a lot of comic actors that are well known in Britain, and when they pop up, you already know that person. So an example is the Irene Handl I just mentioned, who is way before my time, but my parents' generation know her from her comedy stuff. The governor of the prison is a guy called John Mesurier, who's very well known in Britain for a comedy series called Dad's Army. And so you get these cameos, and of course, Professor Peach is played by a guy called Benny Hill, also very well known comedy actor. So that helps a lot with the characters. And the other way it's done is that we see very quick little snippets of these characters. You only get like one line maybe from a lot of them, but it's done through things like, for example, the three racing car drivers, Tony, Dominic, and I forget what the third one's called, the guys that drive the minis. I don't know if you noticed, but they're posh, and there's like the working class criminals all are a bit kind of like, they say, when he's
Right.
introducing them, he says, these are the guys who get you out. You're in faster than anything on four wheels. And then one of them goes, "Oh, hello, chaps," like that with a very posh accent. And the whole group just moans, like they were like, "Oh God, who are these idiots?" So you associate basically a posh stereotype with these characters, and that's all you need. So if you're immersed in that kind of British culture, you'll get that on two levels. Both that they rely on old stereotypes, which for comedy is great. It might not be the most progressive thing in the world, and the other thing is that there's actually a lot of cameos for people in this. For example, Noel Coward, who plays Mr. Bridger, is wonderfully renowned. I mean, he wrote over 50 plays. He wrote hundreds of songs. He's this prolific, artistic, theatrical guy playing a criminal mastermind, which is an absolute genius. If you think about, he plays this very soft. Originally, that character was supposed to be really hard as nails. He plays the kind of really soft power version of it, and it works beautifully well. You're kind of like, you're rooting for him, even though it's this completely bizarre character. So that's, it's done like that in many ways. So I can, you would have to watch this movie 3, 4, 5 times if you don't know these people, to get into it, to get those characters.
Well, you just mentioned about the drivers being slightly different than the rest of, I like how you said, the
Yeah.
working class criminals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes there's a bit of a culture shock that might get in the way. For instance, I think the thing I would have picked up from this first watch was, I think their hair is a little more feathered. It almost looks as if when they did their makeup, they may have done like maybe a different skincare routine. And you're right, they do stand out as slightly different. If this movie was more modern, or if there was a different take, there might be some other type of 15 seconds worth of how they are different from the others.
Yeah.
Instead of a full shot of that, we're giving a glimpse of that. And so what you have picked up here is something that like kind of went over my head, which I always like to say like, oh, I kind of missed that, but it does make sense. And then later on, when they're driving, we do get some communication from camera facing the wheel of the car, and that's where they are communicating to each other, but it's all about like task oriented stuff. And as they're talking, I wasn't picking up that they were more posh, or that they were slightly different than the others. And that's maybe just because of a total lack of dialogue from, not a total lack, but a reduction in dialogue from any of the crew members. Most of what we're listening to is Croker giving out commands and them responding. But that's the kind of thing I was mentioning before the break, is that's a glimpse. That's something I would have missed, and I was glad to learn it.
I want to make a big jump to the end of the movie. This is a huge thing here. We've mentioned before, this movie ends on a cliffhanger. The bus that they're driving too recklessly down this mountain. It sure is a lot of fun, but then it all goes sideways. The bus is halfway hanging over, teeter-tottering over a beautiful scenic vista. It's really scary because the gold's in the back of the truck and everything. If anybody moves around, the whole thing's going to go over the side and you'll fall to your impending doom. However, this movie doesn't exactly have an ending. At the time that they got this movie, Paramount didn't have a movie, and the creators had to go ahead and make their own ending and figure out what they wanted to do. Ultimately, we end on a line where it's just saying, like, I've got a great idea. And we don't even get to see what the great idea is. And perhaps there's talk of things, of sequels that could have happened. There's some ideas where Caine has said that maybe we would turn the key on and let the petrol run out.
Mm-hmm.
The weight off the back of the bus would go back and allow them to step off the bus, but then the gold is lost. I'm going to ask, Ross, as it stands, completely open ending, fairly unresolved.
Yeah.
Talk about this. Do you like this ending as it stands? Because even the filmmaker said we made a lot of people angry on that ending.
Yeah, which I completely get, but I've never seen a film that ended on a literal cliffhanger
Not like that.
like that. And this is my hot take. This movie has the best beginning and ending of any single film. I can't think of another film that has such a good beginning and ending. I just quickly talk about the beginning. I love movies where you basically have a cold open.
Yeah.
You know, you have a title sequence that they work into the movie, this opening sequence of the guy who eventually gets killed. And then the ending, of course, basically, actually, obviously, I only learnt out years later after loving this movie for years. The reason why it ends like that is because they couldn't think of a good ending. But it's actually brilliant. I think it is anyway. I always loved it. I mean, when it annoyed me when I was a kid because I just wanted the car chase to go on forever. But as an adult, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the fact that it's unresolved. It works for me. I think what helps it work, what helps this whole movie work in many ways, is the score, which we'll talk about more later. But when Michael Caine says, he goes, "Hang on, lads, I've got a brilliant idea," you can hear the little sort of harpsichord noise, his little theme being played, you know, and it gives that kind of light, whimsical stuff. And it almost, if you think it's a bad ending, the score, it kind of helps you forgive it a little bit. You think, yeah, okay, that's pretty cool, you know, and then you get this big roaring. The guitar comes in like, and then we hear the main theme again, and it kind of, you can kind of forgive it in a way because it's the main thing. You think, actually, that was a fun ride. That was a great movie. I enjoyed it, and okay, they couldn't end it, but it was good fun. I actually really like the ending. Talking about wanting more.
Yeah.
A great bit of trivia. When you were talking about Michael Caine saying perhaps they could have run the engine for 8 or 9 hours to burn off the fuel and change the weight balance. The Royal Society of Chemistry, which is based in London, which is like a high prestigious science initiative, in 2008, they ran a competition, come up with scientific ways that they could have gotten off the bus. And people, they were flooded with hundreds of applications of people who'd sat there and done the maths and physics and worked out how they'd done it. And if you can read through the the paper that someone gave, how they would do it, it involves breaking the windows so that there's less weight in the bus or something. It goes on for ages, right? That's the point of this, is that this is such a great cultural icon ending in the UK that 50 odd years, 60 odd years after the film came out, that people are still talking about it.
That is a lot of fun from a science problem. The book ending has a completely different ending. There are no problems with the getaway. They successfully get the gold back to England, and Mr. Bridger tells them, "Now go take it back from where you got it from."
It's terrible.
That's terrible. Why would you? Yeah, that book didn't land it either.
I've also heard they wanted to maybe come up with a sequel where the mafia, the bus goes over the edge, but they all get out, and the mafia get the gold, and then the sequel would be they're chasing the mafia to get the gold back. I mean, thank God they didn't make that movie. It would have been dreadful. I'm so pleased that this movie ends the way it does, and we didn't get any more of it.
Oh, Ross,
I'm glad. I do see nothing but bad endings pointing to it, but I have to ask, why not everybody just lean forward? I feel like I want Lorna to come back with a tow truck and like pull the bus up because she was written out of the movie or whatever. It's like, I got your back, and then like they all go to have a high five and a drink, an Anchorman style freeze frame up in the air, high five. But because they didn't write any of these terrible endings, I can have my own ending in my head.
That's it.
But you must fill in the blank for yourself. So
yeah,
that's my ending. Dustin, do you have an ending that you like to imagine?
Yeah, I do have an ending that I like to imagine, and I'll share it with y'all. I never got the relationship between Croker and Bridger, really. Is that there is tension, not really conflict. They're working together. Resources are coming from that side, and then it's is it Camp Freddy? Is that the kind of the right hand man?
Yeah.
Is it like, I like the idea that there's this kind of tension, like, yeah, he needs how much money? Like, oh, there was an accident. There, some of the cars, like that humor was there when they're blowing stuff up and wrecking these cars. Like that was close to like laugh out loud funny, is that interaction, because it's quick, the way that it moves, cuts through these things.
Yeah, great editing. Yeah.
Yes. Now, the thing is, I still don't exactly understand what Croker and Bridger's relationship really is. But I think in my head, I'm going like, well, this guy is like kind of funding the thing, but I'm invested in Croker's success and his team's success. Don't you love when a plan comes together? And the idea that maybe they're expected to rendezvous with some of Bridger's men or get back to, where the operation was overseas, and instead they go east and they take this bullion to Yugoslavia and end up like just vacationing for the rest of their lives. Is that like this? They're free from that, free from the Italian mafia. That's the way I looked at it. But I mean, Russell, you hit the nail on the head. You get to choose how it ends for you, and that's a gift. I've mentioned several times on the show, trying to explain it all, especially when we're dealing with heavy science or magic or illusion or dreams, really ruins it. Just let us believe what we want to believe. They did.
Agreed.
And that's
Yeah.
cool. And let's not take away from viewing it. The way they shot from several angles is like terrifying. Seeing that thing teeter totter. I mean, I think there's reports about like they had stuntmen like holding on to the front of this thing, being like, it cannot go over. You think about so many times throughout the rest of this movie how, man, I hope they got that on the first shot because you can't do it again. The first time I saw
Yeah.
that was with the opening, the car rolling down the ravine, and then Albertini tosses the wreath down, and it happens to just hit rolling, and it was like a really nicely rolling wreath. And I just kind of laughed, and I wonder if they got that first try. Then you see a whole bunch of other things involving stunts. It's like, wow, this is really well shot. So the ending has you almost holding your own breath for these people, even though many of them, like, hey, my first watch, I didn't know their names, but I'm going, I want them to be okay. And I actually read a little bit about what you were talking about, Ross. I think there was a cool thing where, like, yeah, if you remove, you could break some of the windows, but you can also remove some of the windows, and the weight of the glass could then be put through the front of the bus. You don't have that if you don't have the cliffhanger ending. You don't have that incredible scientific discussion about what could have happened here and how, those have existed for decades of how exactly do you make this scenario from a movie happen and how do you get out of it. Those are fun, and it's kind of different than, well, let me point out the historical inaccuracies. Instead, it's, how did this happen? It could have happened, and then we're enjoying the movie beyond the runtime. And that's what this show is all about. That's what your show is all about, and that's what this discussion is great for.
Now, we talked about how the cast, this is not an ensemble kind of movie. This movie must get by on the shoulders of Michael Caine heavily. Ross, without a strong lead man, this movie's not going to work. What is it that Michael Caine's doing here that's working for you? The movie producers, Paramount, wanted Robert Redford, and honestly, I think I could see Redford doing a role like this, especially having seen The Sting. But this movie is so very British that wouldn't necessarily capture that vibe and that feel that this movie is so very British. We have Michael Caine here. Well, how important is he to the success of this?
Well, Michael Caine, I think his big breakthrough was a film called Zulu, which is a British classic, I think 4 or 5 years before this one. And and then he did a film called Alfie, the original Alfie. And so at the point of this, in the late 60s, he's basically the biggest film star in Britain, or one of the biggest. So that's already ticking the box for film goers in Britain. I think the point about Michael Caine in this, though, is that not only can he do the sort of a little bit of the kind of hard edge stuff where he's ordering people around. Sometimes he's ordering people around and it's completely like, it doesn't help the situation at all, which I love. But he can do the comedy stuff as well. He can do the lighter stuff, and he can have a look on his face about, you've picked me up in the Pakistani ambassador's car. What are you doing? Which I love. But he's kind of like this new 60s man. He's super cool at this time. I remember watching him in the Ipcress File, which came out maybe 1 or 2 years before this. Again, really stylish movie. He's got these big 60s specs on. At one point in the movie, he's listening to classical music and cooking an omelette for a woman, which for the 60s is like, that's a reversal of the gender stereotype. That's really cool, modern, swinging 60s breezy kind of guy like this, and that's exactly what he brings to this role. And I think he's perfectly cast.
Yeah, there's something that's cool about him. His sarcasm there, like when he's saying like, I was hunting tigers, and he said, you must have killed a lot of tigers. I used to
all improvised. That scene's completely improvised as well when he says,
I used a machine gun.
Yeah.
he's cool. He's never, even when things go wrong, he pivots well. I think that's something we like in our characters in these heist kind of or espionage type movies. His coolness, I think, is a part of what you got to have there. There's no situation that's too big for him. And, even when he's being intimidated, like you said, he's got enough of a backbone to be like, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah, he's got the ability to kick a bit of ass as well, which you need for the
He's
He
different.
doesn't really get into fist fighting.
Yeah, we get a lot of
No,
that.
I mean verbally. Sorry,
Yeah.
verbally to give people a bit of a kick verbally.
We don't want him to be a Danny Ocean. We don't want him to be a James Bond. We want him to be different, and he is. There are elements of other tropes of the people involved in heist, the planner, the brains, the bankroll. There's all types of sources to pull stuff from. He gets out of prison. His girlfriend's there to pick him up. Then she treats him to like, hey, here's 8 women. What do you want? Everything. And he comes out of the hotel room. He's like, physically exhausted. That's funny. That's good stuff, right? Then later on, some of the other guys are watching outside. Lorna comes in, or I think it's Lorna. They're tossing the clothes as the women run down the street in their knickers, and it's like, all right, so he's sexually active like a Bond. But we are not interested in this movie in the seduction. We're not interested in the suaveness. It's just he's cool enough to get a lot of tail, and he does. Cool. Like, that's
I never realized watching this movie that not only is he, as a kid, obviously you don't pick up on these things, thankfully. Not only does his girlfriend Lorna reward him with an orgy,
right.
he then later the same night goes and puts his leg over the widow of the guy who dies in the first scene.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I know he's been in prison for 2
Sure.
years. You talk about a sailor on shore leave, but my God, what is this guy eating?
Sure.
He's like, what a machine.
That's the Austin Powers quality that I was
Yeah.
talking about. I think even then it was ridiculous. And like you said, it's funny.
Well, and it's a way to easily across the board measure coolness is that, sexual proclivity. But that's cool. But then also, we don't get a lot of fisticuffs, right? He's not boxing or punching anybody out. But his command in a chaotic situation, like you said, it's not really helping, but he's there to do it. He's in charge of it. Earlier, but before the high tension scene of the actual like plaza attack and getting the vehicle, he's describing the plan and he's reminding people to wear their gloves. He's reminding people, hey, I need you to burn this. We're going to burn this. He gets a little bit of a cheeky response. Oh, you want us to synchronize our watches? Like, this is all very much like this crew has come together. They aren't like an experienced team that has worked together and knows each other. Instead, they are here to do the job, and they are at least taking the commands. Now, this is where I would say that's where I need some kind of conflict. I need some kind of bounce back. I need somebody to say we should do it this way. I think the successful heist movies have some kind of inner conflict. I think as far as the plan goes, correct me if I'm wrong, it goes off exactly as planned and it works fully.
To the point you're thinking, how do they predict how long it will take the convoy to get through a massive citywide traffic jam to the minute? And
we are left with something that I think is important, which is a mercurial unknown amount of resources to help them on the back end. So we don't know how Professor Peach does his computer reel switch. Like, we don't know exactly what that's doing in terms of assisting the heist.
Hand wave.
Then we're introduced to another agent, the guy who's dressed in all of the red, white, and blue like UK tourist stuff, who's like tossing jammers. We hadn't even met him. I don't know his name. Then we are, I think, in total, I know this might not sound like that long, but I think we're given 3 total minutes of Italian surveillance professionals just going, oh no, the screens are going out. Tutto torno. They're just like, I don't know what to do. And like, that's a lot of screen time for them just to say, I don't know what's going on. Like, we get a lot of time on that. Like, everything works. I think we've learned since this movie, you need the ability for maybe the cool leader to improvise. Instead, he's just sitting shotgun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is This is not a sophisticated movie in many ways. It's well made, it's well loved, but it's not. You wouldn't say it's the most sophisticated, clever movie you've ever seen. Just to come back on the guy who chucks
Yeah.
those items to stop the camera systems. I believe it's referred to in the film as a computer device. And bearing in mind this is 1969, we're
Yes.
obviously now surrounded by technology
Yes.
and everything. 1969, yeah, fine, that's good. I believe the prop is like if you look at it closely, it's like a model train, steam train in a glass case, and you think, what is that can remotely interfere with a closed circuit TV camera? Doesn't make any sense, you know. But in 1969, I think you definitely would have got away with it.
I think of like some of the Bond movies, like they'll mention like radiation, and they have no concept of like what it does initially. It's like, is it bad? Is it good? We don't really understand what it. It's radiation. Or it's like it's computers.
Yeah.
It's
It's exactly that. Yeah.
So, I think you're right. I think some of that again. The lighter tone makes so many of these inadequacies go away. If you're watching a heavy science fiction movie and they're like using our computers and like they're very serious with their raised eyebrow and they're very like, then you're just gonna go, this is nothing but cheese. But like you're right, when you're playing Self-Preservation Society by Quincy Jones and it's got Michael Caine in it, we're having a good time. And perhaps even those inadequacies become other things that we can appreciate as far as a retroactive laugh at the era. That's fun.
How are we going to burn through that defense grid? Laser beam? Sure. Computer laser beam. Okay.
Tick. Yeah.
I'm going to shut it down by throwing a bike on it.
Hey.
Oh yeah, another great movie.
I actually love that. I cheered. Yes. But hey, your accent there, Russell, reminds me of where I'm from. But the idea is, didn't we have the mafioso has a cousin, an American cousin, showing up at like the dinner?
Yes.
And so I suppose he must be like Italian American, but he definitely does have like the best approximation of how do we make sure we know he's American? Yeah, well, we thank you for your hospitality. I really like that.
That's it. Well, there you go. That's the caricatures that you
Yes.
have it like in the accents in the British stuff. I just wanted to mention, you've mentioned the guy who plays the big mafioso Italian guy, Vallone, who's absolute hero of mine because he's had basically the dream career. This guy started, he played soccer in the 30s in Italy, won the Coppa Italia, that's like the domestic cup title in Italy with Turin. Then during the Second World War, he was a partisan fighter against the fascists, so an anti-fascist. And then he became an actor. And that's like my perfect career path. Footballer or soccer player, anti-fascist, actor. So, I mean, what a stacked LinkedIn profile
That guy
has.
rules.
Seriously,
Yeah.
brilliant. A legend, absolute legend.
I'm going to ask you also, obviously, the style, the vibe of the movie is largely from his son, but in large parts from Peter Collinson, our director here. Peter Yates was considered to be the first offered to the job as director or a candidate of who they wanted. Now, Yates would have come to my mind quickly. Not only had he done Bullet, which we covered, which is a amazing, exciting movie, late 60s. It is more gritty than this movie, but boy, if you want a car chase scene, that's a great one. And
Wonderful movie, yeah.
And he had done Robbery the year before it, which is like a heist movie based on the Great Train Robbery. And so he would have been a logical explanation. Instead, they go get somebody who may not have as much cachet to the name with Peter Collinson. Ross, Peter Collinson, what is he bringing to this? Again, his filmography may not be as deep, particularly at this point.
Yeah, I don't know any of the other films he's done.
Right.
To be honest, it was a bit confusing. As far as I understand it, he was the guy who plays Mr. Bridger, and Noel Coward is his godfather, excuse me, because he was in an orphanage. The director of this movie, Peter Collinson. What's he bringing to it? That's a good question. I often ask myself about that because there's some of the things he does, like getting Michael Caine to improvise the scene where he picks up the car, was obviously a stroke of genius because that scene wasn't really working. And other things he does, like insisting that the Benny Hill Professor Peach character is obsessed by fat women. That's something I would definitely take out of this movie. Apparently, that was the director pushing that. Apparently, the way it was written to begin with, Professor Peach is just interested in trains or something. He's just like a through and through nerd. But no, this has to be fat women.
He's interested in cabooses.
You know,
Ross.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is a lot funnier in 1969 maybe than it is now. I don't know.
The
So
way he does it's
actually,
funny
it's a
even
good.
still, I think. I mean, like he raises his mischievous eyebrows. I like him big. Like it's like
Yeah, big. But yeah, I know. I do ask myself. He obviously has done some great work in this movie. I personally can't point to anything in this movie. Maybe it's because I don't know his other movies. His other movies are really not very well known, as far as I'm aware. I can't point to anything specifically in this movie where I think, yeah, that's his kind of style. That's his kind of input. I think he does I think he does a good job, and that's basically it. He does a good job of directing
Yeah,
this movie.
yeah.
If we'd got, maybe the point is, if we'd got sorry, what's the other director? Yates, is it?
Peter Yates from Bullet.
Peter Yates. Yeah, we might have got a different style. Would have been a lot grittier. Would have suffered, I think. Bullet, and I listened to your French Connection episode. They're two of my favorite films of all time. And this chase sequences in those movies are actually have a completely different feel to this movie.
They do.
And we would have maybe got a much grittier movie, and I think it might have been a brilliant movie, but the Italian Job as it is now stands out because it's kind of basically a caper comedy, and that's probably what the director brought to it.
Yeah, you might have gotten Bill Hickman, who was the driver, who was the guy who coordinated all that stunt driving from Bullet and from French Connection. Instead, you get Remy Julien here, and Remy Julien as a stunt coordinator. This movie, I think, one of the cool things that Collinson's doing is he's giving Julien a lot of driver's seat as a stunt coordinator. What can these minis do? What like it's the Top Gear approach. And in Britain, they have a very popular show, Top Gear, and it's just what kind of wild, crazy things can we do with these cars? People like that. People like to push the limits. And it doesn't necessarily always even serve the plot. There's no reason you have to drive up on the roof of an athletics facility. It doesn't help the chase out at all. In fact, you're going to have to do a little bit of hand waving again to make it work out in the movie. But they did it. They figured out how to. We have a scaffolding and we're working on the roof and the cars just drive up around it and then they stop and the guys get lost and it's funny and you're working to it. I think there's an adaptability of Collinson to ask Remy, what can we do with this? And to be able to put it all together. And again, I think it does go together because when this movie is off to the races, once the car action is in gear, we're having an awful lot of fun. Like I said, this movie is backloaded from that regard. I don't think the plotting is as rewarding as, say, like an Ocean's 11. But when this movie kicks into gear, the stunt coordination, the way that it's all put together, this is the fun. And again, the Quincy Jones music has a component of it. I think Collinson is blending all of that well here. And like you said, I love Yates. I really like him a lot. But because of how fun, how British, and how everything this is, I don't think I would take Yates because of if you shift that too far the wrong direction, it's not going to be fun anymore. And I think that we've established the style and the fun are why we still were talking about this movie.
Ross, you described something that I think I've been trying to say for a long time. Sometimes we bring up the idea of like a director's contribution is like, does the movie work? Well, if the movie worked, then the director did his job. I've got teams of maintenance men who 99% of what they do is just keeping the place running and they don't get thanked. The only thing that ever comes up is when something breaks. And then someone says, well, why did my air conditioner lose power in the middle of the night? I don't know. But all the rest of this hotel facility is working. Like, thank you is what you should be saying. But that's just me getting too into my real life. But the idea is the director did his job. I mean, it's something that was cool. And sometimes what I get is like with a well-known director who's got a style that people know, it's like theory drives results. And in this case, we have, well, the result is the Italian Job. And can we extrapolate a theory from it? I don't know. I didn't try. I just know that the way that you put it, like, hey, the comedy caper is now a thing. That's a big deal. And so that's something that we can maybe attribute to our director. And it's been refined over the last several decades and improved upon, frankly. But I think what we have is, was it a decision to like to drive up on that? It reminded me of the Sydney Opera House, but that athletics facility, and the shot pans back and it's very wide. For some reason, either on the day or it was a choice, we've got a whole lot of field workers, like essentially like threshing. They're chopping down weeds or they're doing some kind of harvesting, and they drive in past them and then they drive out past them. Was that a choice to cast extras who are doing manual field labor in Italy on this beautiful day in this beautiful atmosphere? I don't know, but it stayed in the movie, and it's part of what I'll remember about this movie. And so that's where I can't say like, oh, that's indicative of our director here, but I can say that what our result is great. So Collinson, hats off.
Yeah, I mean, we can drive the minis through the sewers. We can drive the minis across this, like, the dam where the water's flowing over and stuff like that. And which is a great scene because you think, the minis are going to make it and the car's going to wash over. No, the other car makes it all the way to the very end, but it just can't stick the landing and just drives into the water. This movie is so heavily laden with its stunts and its locations. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention. This was originally going to be a TV show, which was too expensive for a TV show, and they weren't going to do it. It was going to be set in London. Would have been more British. However, I think there's a jet set quality that Bond movies from the era have that you mentioned, that there's an optimistic, exotic nature of Italy that is brought to here. They looked at doing Rome. It's too busy. They couldn't coordinate all that stuff. They couldn't manage all that. Milan was considered. Turin was done. And that's cool because I've not been to Turin, and you're getting a taste of it. As you move through town, I could have used more driving through town, to be honest with you. Turin is a more modern Italian city, and so we always think Rome when we think Italy. And so to see the mountainous region, to see this cool, more modern version of Italy, I really liked it. Again, the architecture was exciting. The Fiat factory this building's pretty cool. Like, from the street, it doesn't look like a lot, but there's a racetrack that goes on top. They jump from one building over to the next. And they actually did it for real. And, Remy Julian was like, it's the math. It's going to work out. But, if you screw up, somebody's dead. That, like, they really did it. And even the people who were saying, like, you're going to do this, then, you're going to go to jail for killing somebody if you do this. And the director had a car ready to take him to an airport and get out of the country if something did go wrong. I would rather argue about it from another country than to be sitting in a jail cell in Italy arguing about it. A lot of this stuff was done without permit. Like, they were driving down steps. Amazing. And they told people we were going to come through here, but they didn't know that people were going to drive through there at the speeds that they were going to come through that arcade, that shopping area and stuff like that. We saw this in French Connection. I don't know if it's just the time period, but people don't want to block off streets properly for movies, but they had mafia men blocking off streets instead of the police and doing things properly. This guerrilla-style filmmaking. When you've got Michael Caine, you've got this budget, I'm surprised you can't lock it down. I feel like in today's times, you're definitely going to jail for just doing these things recklessly. But there's a logistics component to what Collinson and Remy Julian had to do to make all this happen. And again, seemingly breaking the rules, just doing it. Just like, we're just going to do it. That kind of do it, beg forgiveness later kind of attitude.
Yeah. If you've ever been to Italy, you know that even now it's quite a chaotic country. I hope I'm not insulting our Italian listeners, but people kind of bend the rules a little bit. Back in 1969, I imagine that was, you can imagine that kind of stuff. And basically they got Fiat on side, who basically is the mafia in Turin. And Fiat were happy for them to do whatever they wanted, basically. And so all of these traffic jams are real traffic jams. They really caused the whole of Turin to be shut down, and people were stuck in their cars and couldn't get home or couldn't get to the hospital or whatever it is. I mean, just imagine doing that now. You just can't do it now.
No.
I suppose now you can fake it. In 1969, it's not possible to fake those wide shots of all of those cars being stuck. Yeah, it's just another wonderful layer. Another point I wanted to bring up about car chase sequences is I always think that American car chases are always about like at speed and power, which is really thrilling. And then the European car chase sequences, I'm thinking of Ronin in particular, which is, as you've mentioned, Dustin, that's my favorite car chase sequence of any movie ever.
Yeah.
They're more sort of more agile, more claustrophobic because you've got these tiny little old streets with cars on both sides. And it's that kind of style that you see in the Italian Job. It's not that kind of gritty realism that you get in Ronin, which is in the south of France. But you get that kind of style. This is a fun style, but you still get the kind of the claustrophobia of Europe, basically, as opposed to America.
That's
you guys
really
basically just got a load more space. So you get that basically in these movies.
I was thinking like The American or The Bourne Identity, what you're describing, like they are different experiences. I hadn't realized it. And yes, I do enjoy things like Speed, where you're driving a bus, like,
Yeah.
super fast on an interstate. But wow, I didn't think about it. It's like what you mentioned earlier, Dustin, with two different kinds of restaurants. I really like both of these things, but they are
Yeah.
different. That's a really good observation.
The claustrophobia matters. I'm not concerned that pedestrians or diners are going to get hurt, but the skill or the thought of can we get through here is fun. It instills a sense of daring, and that is something that I think is fun. You said claustrophobia, which I liked, is a tight road, even if there's no buildings around. You speed our camera up to 1.1, 1.15, and all of a sudden those very impossible tight hugging curves become almost unfathomable for an audience member. Like, how are you making those turns? It ups the tension. That's what I found of this movie, especially with I did not know that this would end with the cliffhanger that it did. But as they're driving through on that big coach, I go, they're gonna crash. And then when it happened, I'm like, oh wow, how they get out of this one? And we don't know.
I figured the movie was basically over when they got up the ramp and in the truck, which, by the way, that's another awesome stunt, to drive from one speed, go up the ramp, and then be able to stop 3 times in a row, car lengths, which means the last car has like no room whatsoever to stop.
And that's the director waving them on,
It
isn't it,
is.
at the back of the
It's
bus,
him.
which I never realized. I mean, that is so dangerous. I can't believe he did that.
Well,
Yeah,
but also
amazing.
it was a choice to say, could it be so very easily where all three just zoop, zoop, zoop right on up? It could have, but
I thought that was it. I thought that was it.
But the idea, like, make it a choice to where you have just been through a harrowing 30 minutes of driving to escape this city, and now the way that you put a bow on it, it's not as easy as, well, just like we practiced drive up the moving ramp on the on the road. This is hard. They all take a couple tries to do it, and the third one is like missing the ramp. Of course you would. It's better that the decision was made that, like, this is hard. This maneuver will not be easy. Yeah, we want them to get away, but I don't know. Maybe by the 12th chorus of the Self-Preservation Society, I'm just sort of like, okay, maybe they made it.
I need a new punk rock cover of that, by the way. I love that like song. It's just like it's been in my head all week long, and it was new. It was, again, that was new to me and stuff like that. The Matt Monroe song was nice. I know Matt Monroe from Thunderball's theme, so this adds to my Matt Monroe catalog. Again, the music of the time period, the attitudes all go together, but Self-Preservation Society seems like the most British thing in the world. And Quincy Jones is a Black American composer who wrote it.
Yeah.
But I think he nails it. It seems very British.
And Matt Monroe, who I believe before he was discovered as a singer, was a bus driver. So there's a nice little ironic point there. I think Quincy Jones's music is, I wouldn't say underrated, but it just does so much for this movie. And I think it's brilliant that he, as a black jazz musician from America, came in and scored this movie. You think maybe that doesn't make sense? You'd maybe want a British or composer or something to do that. But the fact that you get that kind of, there's a little bit of separation there, I think really helps the movie, because you don't basically get like a stuffy, stuck up, overly British score. You get this really playful, energetic, jazzy score from an absolutely wonderful composer. You know, there's a link there with Quincy Jones, who did Soul Bossa Nova, which appears as the Austin Powers theme,
That's
of course.
a great
Yeah,
one.
so all of that stuff. It was actually, I think it's actually, in all of the production of this movie, which I completely adore, I think that's the best decision that they made.
You know, we keep saying Austin Powers like in a diminishing factor. I continue to appreciate Austin Powers more and more, because it's not just mimicking like one or two Bond movies. I see an era of film that it is playing off of and picking up on. And so, again, as I watch more of these, this one included, I just appreciate it more and more, because I see more and more connections to just the era.
There are two things that we on this podcast champion from the 90s, which are the wonderful young adult K.A. Applegate series, Animorphs, and Austin Powers. We believe Austin Powers is underrated and that it needs its recognition.
I agree.
You know, there was something you said about bringing in Quincy Jones and it not feeling stuffy. is that there is a bit of filmmaking to audience joke playing in a way of having the God Save the Queen and Rule Britannia and these
Mm.
sort of classic British patriotic style songs or anthems being played and then normally ending with some kind of like riff that jazzes it up a little bit or like has it fit back into the movie. And it's almost like a tongue in cheek, like even the idea that Bridger's obsessed with the Queen. Like these little things are just personality. And that's the best part about anybody's personality is that it's 100 different things, not just two things. So adding that in gives this movie so many more layers. And it's not something where I would say, I really liked hearing God Save the Queen. It was this choice to kind of zag you out of the way for a minute and a half is enjoyable.
I'm not a car guy, but I got to give some, there's an orange Lamborghini Miura in here. There's an Aston Martin DB4, which the one that goes over a cliff is a fake. People would continuously vex Michael Caine or other people who worked on this movie and say, you destroyed a DB4. It's like, no, they didn't. It was the shell of one. Then 2 Jaguar E-Types are in this movie, and then the Minis. The Minis are the MK1 models. We think of them as Mini Coopers in today. The Minis of back then are a different kind of car. They're a little more, how would you say, rugged, like more of they're not as high end necessarily of the time. So the fact that they're small, like you mentioned, they can fit this claustrophobic scene. Fiat offered them real cars, free cars to use in their movie. They wanted Fiats in there, and the director and Bob Evans, the producer and stuff, which I think is a funny name because that's a restaurant here in America. But anyway, Bob Evans and Peter Collinson felt like this was so uniquely British that this needed to stay the Mini, even though Mini was shockingly uncooperative. Even though they're like the second star of this movie next to Michael Caine, Mini is just like, we'll sell them to you at a discount for like the retailer's discount. Biggest car commercial of the decade.
It's unbelievable. I mean, what yourself in the foot? I mean, talk about free publicity. And Mini are saying, no, we'll give you 2 at trade price and you can buy the other 20 off us at a normal price. I mean, it's unbelievable that they didn't get on board with this film, Mini. Or British Motoring Company, I think it was owned by them
Right.
at this point. Yeah.
I probably would have said, I'm going to take the free cars from Fiat. I mean, you got to be really proud to be British on that one to say we're going to stick with the Minis. They are cool. They look great in the sewers and they look great moving around town. The red, white, blue, again, very British thing to do. That is, to me, the icon of this movie, seeing those cars. Had I been in the director's shoes and stuff, I would have been like, yeah, we'll save the money for more stunts. Let's just use Fiats. I mean, like, give me 3 colors of Fiats and we'll do the same thing.
Yeah, I often wonder if the remake of this movie, which I must admit I haven't seen and I like to pretend it doesn't exist.
Good on you.
Because
it is good.
I love this movie so much. I often think, did they wait until they rebranded the Mini, brought the new Mini out, and they thought, hang on, we can remake the Italian job here? Well, I think it was BMW at that point that owned it.
Probably.
You know, when they brought out the new Mini, and maybe they thought, okay, we can redo this iconic.
There was a strange trend late 90s, early 2000s of taking movies from the 70s and before and turning them into video games. We got an Italian Job video game that I did not play.
Did we?
And we got The Warriors video game 30 years later. Strange, right? The video game, like Italian Job, came out 2 years before the Mark Wahlberg version. I have to agree that there was something about marketing with the re-release of the Mini. I have to. We've covered movies on the show that have the sole purpose of their existence is to sell toys. Hey, these are just toys for grown-up boys. You know what I mean?
What do you guys say we hand out some awards?
Ready, Freddie?
Let's do it.
Right. MVP of the Italian Job, Ross.
I would give it to Quincy Jones, basically, would be my argument. Obviously, the obvious choice is Michael Caine. Or a point I want to bring up, when I was a kid watching this for the first time, in the title sequence, there's a guy with a job title that just says Mr. Caine's Suits, a guy called Douglas Hayward. And when I was a kid, that blew my brain. I thought, that's not a job. I thought jobs are like airline pilots, doctors, nurses. Mr. Caine's Suits? So maybe we should give it to Douglas Hayward. No, but I would actually give it to Quincy Jones.
All right. Dustin, who is your MVP?
Douglas Slocum. I believe he's actually an Academy Award or at least a BAFTA Award winning cinematographer. That's what stood out to me. That's one of the things that made Ronin feel as good about your car chases, Ross? Because we said the same thing when we covered it on the show. Is that you shoot this well, and it becomes so much more. I found our angles. I found the speed that we did things at, and our recognition of claustrophobia across like just more than just physical tightness. I got to give it to Slocum here.
And I think I talked him up a little bit during the director talk, but Remy Julien, when you hear him talking about all the stunts, what is possible with the cars is the backbone of this movie, and it's so much fun. So I'm going to give it to Remy. Best supporting actor. Again, this is tougher because there's not a lot of focus on the support here, but Ross.
I'd give it to Noel Coward if you consider him as a proper supporting actor. I think he's playing against type, basically. And it makes it much easier to get on the side of the criminals in this movie, that he's such an oddball character and not like a hard-ass guy who's, beating people up in prison, which was originally planned. So I'm going to give it to Noel Coward. I think he gives he's known in Britain as this kind of dapper, dandy, kind of foppy, waspish sense of style and so on, and can give you a lick of his tongue if he's annoyed with you, that kind of stuff. And he pulls off this, I think, brilliantly.
Okay, yeah. Dustin, who's your best supporting?
He gets the nod for me as well. I had none of the background you had coming in with Noel Coward, but I do know that his role seemed to have been written and or given characterization more so than anything else. And even though for me, his character on screen wasn't somebody that I was really drawn to, I still thought he executed really well as to what that character is supposed to be, as to what Mr. Bridger represents. And there's other atmosphere that helps, like the aura of what Mr. Bridger is, but a big part of it is his performance.
I'm going with Margaret Blye as Lorna. I really liked her. She was a lot of fun. And I'm not sure necessarily why they specifically said we got to get an American lady in here in such a British movie or in Italy. However, she's a lot of fun. She's endearing to listen to in all the interviews too. There's a lot of good content on this one. So hearing her talk about the movie is also a lot of fun. I think she's like, if you were to go see a panel of the cast and stuff talking about this movie, she tells the story as well. So Margaret Blye, I really, really wish there was more of her at the end of this movie, because I think it suffers when she leaves. Like the whole, I don't want you to get hurt, leave. And then she's written out. I don't like that.
Yeah, Charlie Croker's, my God, talk about tough love. He's like, sleeping with everyone behind her, almost in front of her, and then says, "Oh, we don't need you anymore. Get on the plane to Geneva." I agree. I think she's great in this movie. There's definitely space for her, maybe at the end as well of the movie. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, like I said, I would not mind seeing her. Like, I'll sit in the driver's seat of the bus and throw the weight back or something like that. Like, my 110 pounds will make this all balance out. So here's your gold or something like that. Just save the day. So, hidden gem, Ross.
Well, I've got two things. Firstly is I never realized until I watched the brilliant making of documentary about this that they don't have baseball bats when they're doing the job, when they're beating up, the Italian guards on the convoy. They have pickaxe handles, which was the weapon of choice for the British gangster in the late 60s. But my absolute hidden gem in this movie is because I think it shows the better than anything else I can think of, the logic of someone who's completely drunk. And that is basically at the end when they're all drinking in the coach and it goes over the edge and they're sort of teetering on the edge. And Michael Caine says, right, let's all go up this end of the coach to counterbalance the weight. When he says that, he says, don't make a sharp movement. And when he says that, his number two, Bill Bailey is the guy, Michael Caine's number two in the movie. He takes his shoes off to move further up the cab, of course, making zero difference to the weight that's in the vehicle. But when you're drunk, it's exactly the kind of logic that you think of. Don't make sharp movements, take my shoes off. Doesn't make any difference. It's brilliant. And I love it. And I only recently realized that the last few times I saw that movie. So that has to be my hidden gem.
Love it. All right. Dustin, hidden gem.
That pickaxe handle piece of trivia was so cool. In the back of my truck, I keep something, I call it my just-in-case ball bag, if anyone steps up on me. My hidden gem is our extras. The crowds seem so real. Our laborers on the side of the road seem so real. I don't know if they were given extreme direction or none at all. It doesn't matter. the result is that it seems so fun. I love that interaction between the traffic jam. There's a couple people playing cards. I love the idea that there's like a man kind of like putting the moves on a woman. She slaps him. All of this stuff, and then there's the van that has like the English football team like colors and stuff on it. And as they're driving through, you can see Italian drivers like shaking their fist at them. That's it's a part of this movie that isn't brought up, or it isn't really focused on, is the idea that there was this big football match. It's part of why the crowd exists, but there's nothing else about it. But the idea that they outfitted the extras to be like, yeah, this was a day that there was going to be a lot of fanfare, that kind of thing. So I thought that what fills our atmosphere, all these people, this is one of the best real seeming crowds I've ever seen.
All right. As an architect, I got to go with my hidden gem's got to be the Fiat factory itself. The Lingato building, they don't show it off fully, but this thing is ridiculously long. It's like a skyscraper turned on its side, and they have a driving circuit on top of it. It is featured in commercials to this day. It is very cool. You are up above the skyline, and again, Turin's got these cool, like, geology of the areas, beautiful in the distance. There's nothing quite like it. It's very surreal, almost. I'm going to give a nod to it there. May see a little bit more coming later along these lines. Recast. If you had to recast somebody and put somebody else in their place, Ross, who's it going to be?
I found this very difficult because I think it's brilliantly cast, this movie. It maybe this kind of rolls into the question of what I would change. Maybe it's the Benny Hill who plays Professor Peach. It's just never worked for me, that that whole thing. I love the way that he's this computer genius, and the only thing he has to do is change one cassette reel, and that's it. Then he can go home. I love that joke. That's a great joke. But the stuff about the fat women and so on, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know who I would recast in this movie, because I think it is really well cast, including an inclusion of Michael Caine's brother, who plays one of the generic gang members. So that's a good question. I don't know the answer to.
I was halfway expecting them to have a chase scene like with the Benny Hill music, the dun 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 dun, as he's chasing somebody around the streets of Italy in the background. So
exactly,
there is a scene where it's sped up slightly. It doesn't come with yakety sax, but after he's arrested, they do speed it up a bit. It's got to be a nod.
Yeah, and he's just got his hands on that woman's bum, and that's like,
what he does.
I mean, in the making of, they said that actress was fine with it, and Benny Hill was shy. Is that true? I don't know. Maybe I'm just too woke or something, but I'm like, geez, that's not aged well. Anyway, so yeah, maybe.
All right. Recast somebody and put somebody else in place. Dustin.
Okay. Well, I was listening earlier, and boy, it seems like Vallone was a big deal to you, Ross. But I'm sorry to say that I had a very hard time recasting anybody, because this all happened 20 years before I was born. But that doesn't excuse me from the assignment. So I don't know why, but I feel like he's got a great menace. He's got a great, like, he's someone to be worried about. And I wonder if the tone of the movie would have shifted if we would have put like Telly Savalas there, who has he can put on that kind of strange accent of like generic European exoticness, and it could be kind of fun instead of menace. The menace is really given to us by just the sheer amount of like the mafia guys and the coordinated movements. I almost feel like the movie doesn't need more danger. It needs more of the cheeky. And I think Savalas could have pulled that off.
All right. I'm actually going to ask for you to help me on this one. I don't do this often, but Ross, I need somebody who's British from the era who can provide more sarcasm from the number two man. So, like, I want Michael Caine's number two to have a lot more pull in this one. I need a little bit of a more back and forth between them. And so I want somebody with some sarcasm in here. Most of the people I know from this era in British humor are going too big. Like, I don't need a Peter Sellers in here. I don't need a powerhouse like that. I need an understated, sarcastic kind of interchange so that we can get more out of that dynamic there.
Yeah, I'm struggling now. I've got to ask my parents this question. I think most of the people from that era are actually already in this movie. I don't know. Maybe someone like Eric Idle. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe he could
he's
have given
later though, right? Like, is he around?
Yeah, I think he is. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, but yeah, I'm sure he is actually. Someone like that.
It is a hard assignment, though, to give him on the spot. Like, hey, find me somebody from
I don't. That made it harder. Saying that they needed to be British because that did make it harder. If you were to go ahead and do this in the future, I would think somebody like
Yeah, who would you do in modern day?
I want them to be cool, not to totally upstage like Caine, but like I need them to have a good sarcasm kind of component there.
You also have to rewrite that character. That character has really no big movement or action.
I do.
So we're requiring a big rewrite, or we're requiring that some of the things that we spend time on are taken out of the movie so that we can replace it with the character development that we have not had. So to be honest, and here's a little insight here, and maybe you guys are still thinking of characters, is I watch a lot of Channel 4 British TV, right? TV shows like Taskmaster and 8 out of 10 Cats, and even Countdown. I watch Countdown more than I watch Jeopardy. And so there's a ton of like UK comedians that a ton of them, 60 of them that I know that my friends here in the States don't know. And Ross, the way you were describing the way that these were kind of cameos, it sounds like these were all well-known comedians, just you would not have known about the States, but you knew about them from the era. We would just have to, I mean, it's already filled with these kind of characters that you want, these kind of actors that you want, Ross.
Stephen Merchant comes to my mind as somebody I might want.
Yeah.
Maybe because he's kind of, you need a little bit of that second in command. Maybe they need to be a little bit kind of thick, basically. And Stephen Merchant always can carry that off quite well. There's a reason he's second in command and not first in command, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I see an enormous opportunity with that role, and I want to reshape like what you're saying, Dustin. That's where I want to push this movie. Best shot. If you had to pick a best shot, Ross.
There's so many great shots in this movie. Whether you go for, a lot of the locations are like characters themselves. I just want to say that this kind of 60s style, you tend to get a lot more wider shots that are beautifully composed with proper theatrical blocking of people in frame, which you don't tend to get so much. It's not so much popular in modern film. And so I'm afraid I could come up with a list. I'm not sure I can pick one because it changes every time I see it. I just love some of the shots of the opening sequence where we've got like a almost point of view of someone driving.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The shot where he visits his tailor and there's like a row of mirrors is a beautiful shot. The stunt work shots are fantastic. I'd love to hear what you guys think about both this and best scene, because I've got a huge list to go through.
Dustin, how about you? Best shot?
It was not hard for me to narrow this down after the full watch. Is the decision to drive up on that building, wide shot like you described, workers in the foreground, it leaves you with wonderment, like, wow, they thought of this. And you aren't given a payoff of like, there's a secret ramp on the backside. You aren't given a payoff that this was like part of calculated. It wasn't described in a plan. The plan isn't described to you before they execute it. It's on a big map that gets burned. But we do learn that car, the police car, gets stuck up on the roof. Okay, chuckle, haha, that's funny. But the decision as they go wide and they all split at the same time, that one goes left, one goes right, and one goes down the side. I'm like, this is so cool. It is not a stunt like flying through the air. It's not Dukes of Hazzard. It's cool in a different way. That shot was, for me, the best.
Well, this is an unusual take. The best shot of the movie got cut. It was the Blue Danube deleted scene. If you're familiar with this, Ross, you're nodding. They cut this because it's 2 minutes and they totally needed to have it. One, it's in an amazing, like Pier Luigi Nervi designed huge clear span with all these amazing clear stories. But then they have the symphony playing and they've got the 3 minis weaving together towards the camera. They thought it was excessive and pretentious, and it's not. It's awesome. It's stylish, and I'm upset that it's not put in there. It's really fun, and if you haven't checked it out, you just pause this, go YouTube, Blue Danube, Italian Job deleted scene. It's outstanding.
It's interesting you mention that, because as an editor myself, I know this sequence divides opinions. I'm delighted that they cut that out, because for me, it would have completely destroyed the pacing of the end of the movie. But the opening shot I think they have some camera movement, a zoom out or something, and there's a band playing in the background in this beautiful
Yeah.
hall.
Yeah.
It's kind of bananas, but that is a gorgeous shot and technically very difficult to achieve. So it's a shame that it's not in for that reason. But personally, I'm not a fan, I've got to say, of the Blue Danube. Do you know why? Because it evokes for me too much of 2001: Space Odyssey. So because of that, the music is used so iconically in that movie. But maybe actually I go with that shot. That's my favorite shot, and it's not even in the movie.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, like you said, it's so good. It's just like put it in the post credits at the end, like while the credits are rolling, if you have to. Like, I mean,
that's a great idea.
Like, you just can't throw it in the garbage. Yeah. It's too good. So, as far as things that went in the movie, I love the cars coming at you in the sewers, like the headlights in that shot. What a cool thing to do. And if they had been able to properly close them down and drive in there longer, they said if they had cleaned the walls, they would have, like Remy Julian was saying, I could have gotten the cars to go the whole way to do a barrel roll in there. And I'm sitting there going like, oh, that would have been so cool. So, too slimy, too slippery, and they needed more traction. So they would have had to have shut it down and cleaned it out more to make it happen, but apparently it's possible.
These darn dirty Italian sewers ruining our fun. I can't believe that this
sewers are dirty. Gosh. I've heard that they're not clean.
So. It's filmed in Coventry. That scene. There's a bit of trivia. These darn dirty middle of England sewers.
These dang English dirty sewers that I've been complaining about for years. Not in the way again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, best scene, Ross.
Well, again, it's like one of those one-armed bandit machines. It would just choose a scene for me, and I go, yeah, that's my scene. At the minute, my favorite scene is when they have the run-in with the mafia, with Vallone, and they're up the mountain pass, and you get all those mafia guys standing on the cliff edge, and then they destroy the cars. And as my brother pointed out to me, the way that they get out, the way that Michael Caine gets out of not being shot of that scene is basically to threaten ethnic genocide of Italians in Britain. He says that every gambling den, restaurant, and nightclub in London, Liverpool, and Glasgow will be driven into the sea. He uses the words driven into the sea. It's like, geez, that's full on. But I love the menace. You talked about Vallone. I love that actor, but it's on a serious point. What brilliant menace in that sequence. And he's sort of biting on his glasses half the time. And I love the way that he says, at the end, he says, England, gentlemen, is that way.
Yeah.
Good morning. And I love the way he says, good morning. And I've been saying that to my co-workers every time I go into the office at the minute, and they've got no idea what I'm talking about, but I enjoy it a lot. So yeah, that's my favorite scene at the moment.
All right, Dustin, how about your best scene?
It might be a little smooth-brained, but it's driving and it's exiting the city, and it's all of that. Why not, right? Yeah. I'm not a car chase guy. I did attempt learning all the names of the cars if they were going to be brought up in our show tonight. I stopped. But that's okay. You can enjoy it without knowing all the names, and I do. And I did, and I will come back for it. I will probably sometime in the next 30 years, a dozen times, just be, lounging around and be like, let's go with the Italian Job car chase. And I will watch that, and then I will watch The Matrix Reloaded, and then I will watch Ronin, and then I will watch The French Connection. And this is now just part of the pantheon of, that's cool. And it's going to be cool forever.
Yeah, there are a lot of newer car chase scenes, that, as you mentioned, Dustin, that might have eclipsed it in some ways, but you got to appreciate where this French Connection, Bullet are. They're decades. They're decades before, and they're also really good. They're not like they're on a whole different...
I got to say something here, too. I saw in, I don't know, maybe 2002, something like that. I saw Gone in 60 Seconds. But that was right on the cusp of our Fast and the Furious franchise really starting, progressing, and then really taking off. Never seen a single Fast and the Furious movie. I don't want to. It's too much. It's self-indulgent, and I hate the personality associated with what Fast and Furious.
You would prefer moderately paced and,
this is what I want.
Mild-mannered.
This is what I want. A movie like this is what I want. I don't want.
I completely agree with Justin. I take my hat off to you. I completely agree. Brilliant.
So what I was going to say is, like I said, for its place in film history, for its progression, for what it does for the car chase, for the fun of it, it is absolutely still intact. So it's the chase scene. You said it right. That's the best scene. And it might even expand across a couple of scenes, but it's hard to pull it apart because once it gets going, it's a blur and it's a lot of fun. Best wardrobe or makeup moment, Ross.
Well, this one's an obvious one in this film. It has to be when Michael Caine gets his new suit. He comes out of prison with like a drab 50s style suit, and then he goes to his "take me to my tailor,"
Right.
as he says to Lorna. Goes to his tailor and gets this beautiful new 60s style, very stylish suit. So that's the moment for me. Thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen when I was 6 years old. The first time I saw this movie.
Is that the beige suit that you're talking about?
The gray one.
No,
That's
it's
right.
a grey suit when he pretends to be Lord Croker shortly after arriving at the hotel. That's the grey one.
That's right. Okay. So later on, as he's
Yeah.
telling Lorna to get on the plane, he's wearing a beige suit, a summer suit, with a blue and white striped shirt and a white, gray, green, silver argyle tie and black gloves. You aren't supposed to put loud patterns together. Man, this suit works. And I was just kind of. There is something too, especially about anybody that's crime adjacent or criminal, of the suit with the gloves on. I'm a sucker for that. It's like, oh, this is, you got to always be a professional. It's not me with my briefcase. It's with things I do work. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, I'm following towards where you are, Ross. I like when the elevator in the garage goes up and then he's fresh out of prison.
The new man.
Yeah,
the new
yeah.
60s man, Michael Caine, comes out. Yeah.
I dig the gray suit as well. And he's presented with the Aston Martin, at that point too. So the car, the suit, I mean, he's getting awfully close to James Bond vibe levels here of cool. He's dripping cool. It's in a puddle coming behind him. So a lot of cool there. Change one thing, Ross.
Well, I'll take a sideways go at this one. I've already mentioned the Benny Hill fat ladies thing, which doesn't work for me. But I actually met a cast member of The Italian Job. This is a very tenuous connection, but stay with me, listeners. The guy at the very beginning of the movie where Michael Caine's being kicked out of Caine prison, which is in Dublin. It's now a museum, very interesting museum. The guy that's behind him, when Michael Caine says, "Cheerio, lads," and the guy, the prison warden behind him says, "Keep it down, Croker, you're not out yet." That's a guy called Frank Kelly, who will be known to listeners in the UK. Well, maybe not known, but a very famous character he played was an alcoholic, raging priest in the sitcom Father Ted. Now, I met him at a book launch some years ago, 15 years ago. Unfortunately, he's passed on now. If I could change one thing, I'd go back in time, because at the time I didn't know that was him in The Italian Job. I would go back in time and ask him about his experience in The Italian Job. So there's another tenuous connection.
Oh, deep cut. I like it. Dustin, change one thing.
It's a cool take on that question too. Yeah, mine is, and I mentioned before, we have a stunning lack of conflict in this movie, and I need my tension turned up. The ways that this movie introduces tension to you is good, but there's so much room for more, and I suppose it either wasn't in fashion or we didn't know that we needed it yet. But it's not a foreign idea to either of you two, and for most of our listeners. You want there to be conflict. We always do. And instead, if you broke it down, aside from they already learned about the mafia too. They knew they were there. So aside from their encounter on the road, everything in this movie goes according. That is something I would change. We gotta have some improvisation, we gotta have some conflict, or we gotta have something that gums it up. And there's no surprise. It works. It's a weird thing to say of a movie with this magnitude, to say, it just kind of works.
Mm-hmm. I was torn. I had initially written down, I want to get to know the crew a little better. I want just some more of those personalities. Like, it's hot and I don't want to sit in the back seat. Some of that's funny, but it's a lot funny if you get to know the people involved. So I think that will have the actual highest payback for my change one thing. But I also alluded to earlier, show off that Fiat building, show off Turin, drive through the streets a little bit more. I want to see more of the landscapes. Show me more driving scenes, And again, You can just shove some of this in the credits if you need to at the end of the movie while credits are rolling. I just want to see more of Italy. They did a decent job of what they did, but it was very, what can the car do? They're not showing the city itself off. And because Turin's not a place that we go visit every day in movies, this is not New York, London, Rome. This is Turin. I want to get more of a flavor of it. And you can do some of that with dialogue of like what Michael Caine and Lorna are doing in Turin and stuff like that. But I think the greatest opportunity is to just show it. I think Peter Yates, who we talked about, did an amazing job of San Francisco and Bullet. They covered an enormous amount of the city in I think it was a 9-minute car chase scene, so it's a lot. It was perhaps indulgent, but you see the geography, you see the way the streets feel, you see different parts of town, different neighborhoods. I love that. And I want a little bit of that. I just want a little piece of Bullet brought into the Italian job so we can drink in the Italian atmosphere more. All right. Best quote. Ross.
I'd hand over to Michael Caine's autobiography, which is sitting somewhere on the bookshelf next to me. It's called Blowing the Bloody Doors Off, because of all of the movies he made, both good and bad. Don't forget, Michael Caine was in Jaws 4. But of all of those movies, he's chosen that quote to be the name of his autobiography. It's the quote that everyone knows, that everyone says from this movie. So for me, it has to be, "You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off."
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. As the car blows up. Love it. That's a great one. Dustin, how about you?
He is in one of his personas when he's at the tailor's, and he says something like, "Oh, I've just been back from like a business deal, like overseas." And the tailor says, "Well, I'm glad you're out. I mean back." Because he knows.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very, very cheeky.
I'm going to go with a line that's not a Michael Caine line. And Camp Freddy says to Mr. Bridger, he goes, "Maybe the professor's not bent." And Camp Freddy goes, "Everybody in the world is bent."
That is a great line. That
was my honorable mention. That is a great line.
Yeah.
Ross, before we go into our ratings and recommendations here, I want to hear from you. Is there anything that you want to plug? You are an editor. What kind of films are you working on? Is there anything people can see from you or we should know about?
Not in terms of films that I'm making, but definitely in terms of the Historical Movies podcast, which I do with my brother. As I mentioned at the top, it does what it says. It looks at historical movies. So you can check us out by searching for the Historical Movies podcast. We're on Blue Sky. We're on YouTube. So if you type in Historical Movies podcast, I'm sure you'll find us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you like this, and if you like history, it's an Venn diagram that creates a complete circle there. So you definitely need to check that out. Now, on a 5-star scale, half-star intervals, Ross, what are you giving The Italian Job from 1969?
Well, this is an interesting one because obviously it's a personal favorite of mine, to the point at which my family members still text me or message me when it's on TV. My dad will just say, "Oh, The Italian Job's on Channel 4 or something." I'm like, "Dad, I'm 37 years old, but thanks anyway."
And he knows that you're about to watch it, so...
Yeah. When I was a kid, we used to get this thing called the Radio Times in the UK, which was all the TV listings for the week. In that honourable magazine, when I was a kid, they gave this movie 3 stars out of 5. And when I was a kid, I couldn't believe that they gave it 3 stars. I was thinking, this is the best thing I've ever seen. It's surely a 5-star movie. But of course, as I've got older, even though I love this movie, it's not a 5-star movie. It's, as I said, it's wonderfully fun, but it's not massively sophisticated. So I would give it, personally, I'd give it a 4 stars. One of my favorite movies of all times, I'd give it 4 out.
And you're allowed to just say 5 just because I like it a lot. That's allowed too. It's objectively a 4, but a 5 in your heart, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. I think those two things, it can be different. You can give a different score based on how brilliant you think the artistic work is and how much you personally enjoy it. And that's why I give it 4.
I do it all the time. Chad sits there and groans almost. He's like, "Stop giving away 5s to everything." I'm like, it just made me really happy. I don't know what to tell you. Dustin, how about you? What is this movie for you?
Part of my job here is to be a foil for you, a foil for someone who, "Oh, this movie had a huge historical impact, and for that, I must give it 5 stars." And I go, "No, measure it as it stands alone." I think I belong in the Radio Times. I'm giving this a 3 star. This is a recommendation. I would recommend this movie for people to see. They don't have to be a fan of car chases. They don't have to understand the environment and the atmosphere of 1969. They don't have to know anything about the UK, and it would still be a recommendation. If you know that stuff, then I think its rating must be higher. For me, I brought up the lack of character development, which we've kind of said we understand, but it's not there. And we understand the speed, the editing's good, but we understand a lot about this movie. And so at this point, all of the things that I maybe have come to expect from this genre since has become, we have really, really refined. So I can say thank you that this movie exists, but it doesn't crack. I don't think it cracked the level of like a Ronin for me or an Ocean's 11 for me. It exists, and I'm glad that it does. And I have in my life been used to Michael Caine at the age that 90s, 2000s, 2010. So getting to see him younger is a treat. But I think 3 stars makes sense for me.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned young Michael Caine. We covered way back, one of our first 10 episodes, I think it was. We covered a movie that Michael Caine did with Laurence Olivier called Sleuth. And he went back and he played the role that Laurence Olivier did as an older man with Jude Law playing the younger role, also called Sleuth. So he is a rare case of the main character is one of the main characters in the remake as well. And that's a very interesting comparison, almost in a theater reproduction kind of way, and 2 different takes on it. So definitely check out both of those too, by the way. So shameless plug for something we've covered, but young Michael Caine and old Michael Caine coming together in Sleuth. Very different takes on the same movie. Really good stuff.
Yeah, one of my favorite actors, Sir Michael, and still going, and I hope he still is.
So I'm gonna follow suit with you, Ross. I'm gonna go 4 on this one, and I'm glad I watched this again because I probably came closer to Dustin the first time. I was just too tired, and in the action, again, expectations were not properly set quite right. I was expecting a little more slam bang action early, and part of a heist movie is the planning, the humor and the tone. Like watching the whole prison shout and cheer, the fact that it's being orchestrated from a guy in prison. We didn't talk about that. That's fun. There's a lot of parts of this that are very enjoyable, and I see probably rewatch value in this that will carry it. And like you said, Dustin, I think car chases probably were eclipsed by sometimes more action or, just better camera work and technology to be able to maybe elevate what the chase can do more. But boy, they did everything they did with real math. They really did everything. Like there's an authenticity in what they did. You can't fake that, and that keeps it from being too dated. It means it's not way far behind. So given that it was decades earlier, it doesn't feel like it's decades behind. So I'm going to give this a 4. All right, Dustin, do you want me to pick a movie for next time?
You got it, Russ. Hey, remember record stores? Remember browsing for hours looking at the cover art, finding out about different bands, thinking about which albums you would bring home with you? The records, cassette tape, and CDs. Well, so do we. And next week, we're going to cover a movie in a record store with one of these 3 options. Option number 1 from 1977, Record City. Bizarre and funny employees and customers pass through the popular Record City music store in Los Angeles during a live radio concert in the parking lot, hosted by a wild disc jockey wearing half a monkey costume. Option number 2 from 1995, Empire Records. 24 hours in the lives of the young employees at Empire Records when they all grow up and become young adults thanks to each other and the manager. They all face the store joining a chain store with strict rules. Or option number 3 from 2000, High Fidelity. Rob, a record store owner and compulsive list maker, recounts his top 5 breakups, including the one in progress. What's it going to be?
Did you say compulsive list maker? I can't pass on high fidelity. That's it. That's me.
The list man. The list man.
All right. Ross, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really enjoyed having you. It was a lot of fun, and you were just the right guy to help cover the Italian Job with us. Nobody else could have covered it quite like you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words, Russell and Dustin. Great fun, an absolute pleasure for me to be on. Thanks a lot.
And please check out Ross's other podcast, the Historical Movies Podcast. It is available wherever you get your podcast, right, Ross?
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you, all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you, so subscribe, rate, and review to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a like on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @movie_retro. Email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. And providing and producing this podcast is fun, but not free. So we invite you to support the show at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/retromovieroundtable. All contributions are much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. You get about 10 beta episodes in there from before we really got things going and gave the show the shape that it is. So that's out there. And as always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Dustin?
When your folks name you Bats, you're gonna end up crazy.